So yeah, it's a good question, Jonathan, because it's been a very interesting period for the listed industry. We've had a number of listings. They've been very heavily led by retail offerings, and I think it's also fair to say that when you go down a retail route, and that's not it's a respectable route of raising money, it tends to have some slightly different requirements from institutional, and what that tends to mean is there's a much greater focus on the excitement and the upside case around your business, rather than perhaps what would be a more traditional stock market route, which is the institutional angle, where these are some fairly hard-nosed people who are looking for, well, how is this going to make me money on a 2 to 3 year view, and that's really the sort of the top level. In terms of where the UK market is, clearly it's a very different market from Canada, which of course has been the mainstay of the cannabis investment sector, and I think that's taken quite a lot of people, even within the industry, a while to fully understand the implications of those differences, and hopefully we can come back to that in a bit. Well, I think, obviously we're at Canaccord, we're very focused on institutional money managers, and that's mainly who we raise money from. We think that so far there have been less than half a dozen orders from any institution to buy a cannabis stock in London. And they've really only bought so far Sativa and MGC Pharma. I think other stocks haven't really succeeded in attracting institutional interest. There has been a lot of talk of some other potential listings succeeding in attracting institutional interest, and hopefully over the course of the next few weeks we will see some of those bear some fruit. Obviously, it was the very high-profile EMAC transaction where they were hoping to do a public markets listing, and then ended up getting a what we can only assume was a more attractive offer from a Canadian LP. I think that what needs to change. I think firstly there needs to be an offering that is very focused on a UK fund manager. Something that I spend a lot of time talking about is walking people up the risk curve. So to start off with, give them something which is UK grow, UK end markets, wholly medicinal, perhaps a wellness angle, but most likely predominantly just medicinal, and with minimal involvement of sort of difficult counterparties, and that could include some of the sort of racier end of the Canadian promoter industry. That could include sort of too many people with a more entrepreneurial past than you're hoping. You really sort of want them to have a degree of blue chip stability, which is what the sort of London markets really respond to. That said, actually, of the London listed stocks, arguably MGC is fairly close to that. There are. It's also fair to say that many of the others that are listed, whether it's Cannabis, whether it's cellular goods, whether it's Sativa, they've all got some aspects of those things. So it's not like the existing listed stocks have none of that. I think for institutions, they need to be, ultimately you're talking about individuals who are themselves reporting to others, and they need to be able to write in a quarter end report or in a year end report, I bought this stock and I'm proud of that because of X. And answering that X is really the kind of center of the any kind of institutional offering, and that goes across any sector. You know that I'm owning. Back in the day, I was owning Vodafone because of the rollout of mobile telephony, or I'm owning Microsoft, or I'm owning Deliveroo, or sort of what is your sort of one-liner that says this is why I'm doing this. And I think that's too often with many of the people who I speak to answer that question requires a lot of slaying of shibboleths before you get to being able to answer it. And actually, I don't want my investment case to rely on slaying shibboleths, because that uses up whatever time I've got to, I need the answer to be just bang, here's what we're doing. And that sort of goes to some extent to business model. If you've got a business model that requires a lot of explanation, you're already on the back foot, as it were, in trying to explain what you're doing. What you really need to be able to do is say, look, we're doing this thing, and this is why it will work. And I think that goes across a whole bunch of different industries, but it's particularly relevant in cannabis, where there is still a degree of prejudice against the industry, and a degree of prejudice against the motives of what's going on.